I work as an art restorer. Basically, I'm paid to make old paintings look like they're brand new. I've always enjoyed my job, until my latest commission. It was a painting commissioned by my city's Museum of Art. When I arrived to pick up the painting, it was covered by a thin white sheet. The museum worker guiding me assured me it was covered so it wouldn't be damaged any further by the sun. But as I'm looking back, I realized it's because I didn't want to look at the woman in the painting. The man helped me carry the painting into the backseat of my car. As I closed the car door, we made eye contact. His gaze almost looked like he was guilty. I hadn't uncovered the painting until I returned home. Yet, the whole car ride, I could feel eyes burning to the back of my head through my rearview mirror. Once I arrived back to my house, I brought the painting to my studio. Then, I propped it up on my easel and uncovered it. Even through all the aging the piece went through, it was still a work of art. Although, I will say, it was a rather strange concept. It was a beautiful woman in a white dress, sitting in a rocking chair, surrounded by forest as far as the eye could see. Half of her face was covered by some strange residue, but the other half was painted extremely realistic. She had long, silky, black hair, shiny lips, and entrancing eyes. However, something about her felt lifeless. Maybe it was because her eyes lacked pupils, or because her lips were in a permanent frown. I began to work on covering the random splotches spread throughout the painting, starting off by restoring her face. As the sun went down, my neck began hurting, so I decided to stop for the day. I put the cover back over the painting and walked out of the room. That night, I kept having dreams about the woman in the painting. She was standing in my bedroom, looking over me as I slept. I woke up to the booming sound of thunder. I sat up in my bed, sweat dripping down my face. My eyes frantically looked around the room for the woman in the painting. Even though my room was empty, I still felt a sense of panic. As I looked down, I realized that there were wet footprints on my bedroom floor. I held my hand over my mouth. Someone had been in my room while I slept. I quietly got up and followed the strange footprints. I felt my stomach drop as they led me to my bathroom. The mirror had been shattered, and a bunch of my pills were scattered across the floor. I looked into the mirror, and my reflection looked blurred, almost like smeared paint. At first, I questioned if maybe I did this. Then, the footprints led me to my art studio. The door was wide open, although I swore I left it closed before I went to bed. I slowly peeked into the room, almost afraid of what I would find. A lightning strike illuminated my studio, and I had a perfect view of the painting resting on my easel. It was no longer covered by the white sheet. The woman's frown had curled up into a smile. I was so shocked I fell to the floor. My legs were shaking so much I couldn't get back up, so I quickly crawled on all fours, all the way back to my bedroom. As soon as I was in my room, I slammed the door and locked it from the inside. I took a step back, trying to process what I just saw. That's when I saw the shadow of the figure underneath my door. It called out for me.
I know you're in there.
I held my hand over my mouth to hold back my scream. Sweat was dripping down my forehead, but there was no longer any thunder. Had I dreamt the whole thing? I looked down into the floor, and the wet footprints were gone. The sun was just beginning to rise, but I decided to check on my art studio, just in case. The painting was rather expensive, and I wouldn't be able to pay for it if it was stolen. I could still feel the adrenaline in my body, so I found myself sprinting down the hall. As the sunset lit up my studio, I could see my painting clearly. The woman was no longer there. It was just an empty rocking chair, surrounded by forest. I felt a cold and wet hand touch my shoulder. My whole body was frozen, and I was afraid to turn around. I looked down and could see the white dress in the corner of my eye. The woman put a finger over my mouth and whispered into my ear as she caressed my hair. Her pale hands left spots of paint staining my hair. I forced my body to turn around and saw her face. The restoration painting I'd done on her face hadn't dried yet, so it looked like half of her face was melting off of her skull. I stepped back as she walked closer to me. I could feel the painting hit my back as she cornered me. The last thing I saw was her frown curl up into a smile. It was almost 2 weeks before the police arrived on scene. The air in my art studio was thick. Once they saw my body decaying on the floor, they checked my pulse and realized I wasn't breathing. As I held their breath, they came to the conclusion that the paint fumes must have gotten to me. As the officers looked over at the painting, a surprised expression came across their faces.
Did she draw herself in there?
Thank you for watching. I was inspired by this art restoration video my friend Orion sent me. I hope you enjoyed this video, so goodbye for now, but not forever.